Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Good Girls. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, that opening. I would have never thought we'd ever see Boomer again. I love it. So basically, we see Boomer sitting down with Tyler, which is sad because that means literally the only person in his entire life, other than his Nana, the only other person in his entire life that likes him is Tyler, because Tyler is so naive. He's the only person that doesn't realize how much of a piece of shit Boomer is, because we as the audience realize how much of a piece of shit he is. But nevertheless, he's asking Tyler, because there was even that moment, it's like, yeah, because everyone at the store was happy, to hear what happened to you. But me, I was like, they don't know you the way. He's like, so who? And it's like, oh, let's start off with a few people. And it's like, oh, this other person's like, really? Why? It's like, well, because you made fun of her. You did that impression of her in front of everyone. He's like, well, I didn't know it was a deformity. He like, oh, like this woke culture or something like that. It's like, ugh, Jesus, Boomer. But the fact of the matter is, he's got to go to prison. I guess it's all retribution for the fact is because obviously he was going to get like immunity for turning on Beth and the girls, but he didn't obviously. So he was going to let them go down for the murder. So he still got to go through. Like I think this was Turner. Interesting enough, I think this is most likely before Turner ended up getting murdered. So kind of Turner's like final middle finger to him too. So it's like it's not only you that kind of got screwed over. I mean, rightfully so. You deserve. Nevertheless. The fact of the matter is, he gets all tatted up before he goes into jail because he's like, oh, that's the only way he's going to survive. So I was like, okay. So I was like, how's that going to translate into this episode? Obviously, they're trying to come up. Well, for one, there was that nice scene between Ruby and Stan because they're laying in bed. It's their anniversary that's coming up and everything. And like, obviously Stan's got these big plans about like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's going to be awesome. But at the end of the day, Ruby's like, oh, we could go halvesies on a water heater. So it's kind of like, money hard pressed. So it's like, she's like, I got to go to work. And he's like, me too. And in that moment you see it because they're both kind of, I think it's just kind of like, oh, we got to get money. Like, we're just kind of going from paycheck to paycheck type of situation. But also, we as the audience know it's like both of you aren't really communicating about the criminal stuff that you're up to. Stan's not telling Ruby what he's up to. And Ruby might kind of have some idea, but not quite sure what Stan's necessarily up to. Which we'll go ahead and down that lane of things because Stan shows up at work. And obviously, Destiny and the girls are getting grilled by a cop because of like some missing earrings. And Stan kind of treats them a little sit your asses down, calling them bitches and stuff like that, because he's trying to like create a rapport between him and the cop. It's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, oh, you want to check the lockers? Go right ahead, but there were some pretty shady people. It's like, and the cop was like, I just keeps an eye on him. I know, right? It's like, why'd you go? It just kind of wasn't worth it. Yeah. So and luckily the cop just like left and stuff like that. Stan handled that pretty nicely. Sadly, he's kind of had to deal, tiptoe around this criminal world himself, so he knows exactly what buttons to push. But the thing is, Destiny kind of wants to back out of it because Stan's like going forward, no stealing jewelry or anything like that. Take money, because if you take money, that's less traceable than an item. Because even if you steal an item, that means you sell it to a pawn shop. Eventually, going to trail it back to that pawn shop and trail it back to you. Money's a little more something that you can get away with without too much issue, without there being someone being like, yo, like, like it's a little harder to track than objects. But when it comes down to it, like Destiny wants to back out because she doesn't want to go to jail. But for Stan, he's like, you know what? It's me and Ruby's anniversary. It's like 23 years. She's like, what's that, diamond or platinum? And he's like, she wants a water heater. And Destiny's like, oh, leather or whatever. And it's like, for him, he's like, I'm not just going to get her a water heater because he wants to do something special. He's tired of not being able to just do something special. So when Ruby gets home, what does he do? He's got like a machine, like they're singing Push It by Salt and Pepper, right? I feel like I'm getting that wrong, but I think that's him, right? But nevertheless, it's like they're having fun and everything. It's like, karaoke and stuff like that. She's like, oh, so when'd you rent this? He's like, I didn't rent it. I bought it. I was like, you could have at least lied and say you rented it. Be a little smoother, but she's like, whoa, you bought it. Like, whoa. And he pulls out like a diamond ring. She's like, is that like real? And he's like, yeah. And so now it's like, oh, so like these parties are really like, you're getting paid that good at these parties. She kind of, obviously being part of the criminal world or stuff, she's realizing like, yeah, this ain't making much sense. And Stan's like, wear the ring. And she's like, I don't feel comfortable wearing it. He's like, and Stan gets super offended. He's like, wait, what do you mean she's like, I don't feel comfortable wearing it. He's like, well, when is that such an issue? And she's like, excuse me? because it's like basically it's like after everything that you've done, like why is now like where you're gonna draw the line? For her, it's like you literally not too long ago were grilling me about like, oh, me not being, oh, how easily I'm able to sleep and shit like that, which I've talked about before. That's why I was like, Sam being a hypocrite. But then for him, it's like, but the fact of the matter is you did it over and over again, and now it's to this point that you basically blew down the whole damn wall or door. I can't remember the exact word he was saying, but basically it's kind of like you kind of going so far back, like you kept going back and back, even when you got pulled out, you went back in. It's that situation of, can you honestly say it is just about your family and stuff like that? And even if it is, like, we could have found a different way. You still could have been out, but you went back in to this whole life. And so for him, he's like, why do I have to not be the one part of this too? Because she's like, at least one of us has to be good. He's like, what? Sis, what? She's like, one of us has to be good. And he's like, but I'm tired of being good. What did good get me? To the point, I can't even, like, we just have to decide on whether to buy a water heater, and I can't buy you something, I can't get you something special like a ring, like having to buy you like a good ring, And it's like, he's just tired because it's like, what did being good do? It like, it didn't give him his badge. It didn't get, it's almost like, nice guys finish last type of situation. So for him, it's like, what's the point of playing by the rules? What's the point of being good? But for Ruby, it's like, I'm already in deep shit with all that I'm doing. Like, you have always been this, like, this moral compass that pointed true north, and now once again Ruby already felt it, and I think she feels it even more so in this moment of like, she feels guilty of like, she probably thinks to herself like, I corrupted Stan was such a good pure person and I broke that. Maybe, I don't know, I mean, who knows, maybe this was always laying underneath. I mean, like Beth, like this whole criminal stuff kind of, it came a little natural to her, like she felt good about it. She liked it, so who's to say Stan isn't the same? But I think it's a little bit different. But Ruby's like, I won't wear the ring, but he's like, yeah, but I'm not going to take it back either. So that's a definitely complicated situation. And I like the lane in which that kind of things kind of went down, in that department. So another side of this situation is the whole thing with Annie. She's studying with Josh, they're having beers or eating pizza. And he's like, ooh, she's like, oh, you know so much about me already. What about you? He's like, that's the way this works. You do all the talking, I don't. It's like, oh, pineapple pizza bites her. She's like, you just bit my pizza. And he's like, what? I didn't want to get a whole slice. She's like, yeah, but you bit mine. So it's like we kiss. And he's like, what? No, it's not like that. She's like, yeah, basically because of pizza transference, you just stuck your tongue in my mouth hard, whatever. So she's like, yeah, kind of say whatever you want to, but see you next time type of situation, being like super flirty. And you can tell Josh likes it, but at the same time, he feels like, oh, maybe I'll kind of cross the line. And obviously, Ben's asking like, oh, you got home pretty late. And she's like, yeah, that's because I was with my therapist. Like, wait, what? You were drinking beer with your therapist? Isn't he supposed to just, he's like, oh, we're studying stuff like that. It's like, oh, we're just like study partners. And she's like, oh yeah, what about the situation with your last study partner, that being Ben's dad? And it's like, yeah, everything went down, and y'all got married, had me, got divorced, he got remarried, and it's like, and here we are right now. But also showing you how wise Ben is, because Annie kept being like, where's my keys? And Ben's like, I don't know. It's like, you know everything. Ben's like, check the fridge. And she's like, and he's like, I'm not stupid. And leaves, comes back in, checks the refrigerator. Lo and behold, there's her keys. She's like, this doesn't mean you know everything. But I like Ben doing what he does. He goes to meet Josh. And it's like, yeah, like, oh, I'm like the other mom that's coming to see a therapist. And it's like, oh, okay. Realizing exactly who Ben is. And it's like, for Ben, it's like, I'm here protecting my mom because I have to protect my mom from herself. That's always, and that's the sad thing is, that should never be a child's responsibility to have to basically, it's always supposed to be like your parents are supposed to protect you. But obviously Ben kind of had to grow up fast, considering everything with her mom, with his mom, with this whole situation. So it's like, my mom, like, the fact is, she thinks there's something going on between you two, like that you care, like, yeah, you care for her and everything, sure, and you want to work through her issues, but the fact of the matter is, she thinks you're into her, and that's going to lead to like some problems later on, because basically it's like, when you ultimately end up breaking her heart because this isn't what she thinks it is, she's going to come like home, she's not going to get out of bed for like 3 months, she's not going to shave her legs, she's not going to pay the bills. Basically her mom's going to fall apart, and she's the one that's going to have to be there to kind of pick her mom up, try to get her mom like up and at him after everything, and so Ben's basically saying like, you kind of have to handle this situation because, or I will like basically Yelp turn those 5-star reviews into 1. And he's like, Josh is like, you were definitely your mother's son. Like, you know, because he was like, Yelp terror sheet, and Ben was more like, no, more like Yelp freedom fighter. And so kind of Ben just being the protective son looking after his mom. And that changes things for Josh. I even love later on, and he shows up lipstick on and everything, and asking Tim is like, "Oh, do I look good? How do I look?" It's like, "You look like a girl." They're like, "Yeah, you know, does it matter?" It's like, "Yeah, it does." Like, "Tell me." He's like, "Does it matter?" She's like, "Yeah, tell me." And he's like, "You got a little on your teeth." And she does the whole thing of like, "Am I good?" Yeah. Good looking out, Timmy. Goes inside. Lo and behold, Josh is there with what was her name, Lila. Played by Madeline Zima, which is interesting. Because the thing I best know her from was the Nanny, because it's a '90s show, obviously, but I didn't start really watching it. I don't remember if I watched it as a kid at all. I definitely know I watched a lot of it when I was. It's actually a really funny show. I mean, to be fair, I watched it when I was in high school, but I think the show still holds up very nicely. That's just me. But she played the youngest, Grace. Interesting enough, NBC connection wise, she was in the final season of Heroes. Because she was Claire, wasn't that her name? Hayden Panettiere's character, the cheerleader. I think that wasn't, yeah, Claire. She was Claire's roommate in college in the final season of Heroes. Just kind of an interesting like connection to think about. But basically it's like, oh, she's going to be the one to help you study. And then obviously Annie's kind of confused because it's like, what about us? He's like, no, I think this is better, don't you? She's like, no. So Josh kind of like, because he didn't want to like, you know, come at this with like a soft pitch, he went like full speed fastball, like, and basically it's like, oh, this is my girlfriend, basically not wanting Annie to kind of get like, because I think it is the thing of he does kind of like Annie, and now when you actually look at that situation, you're like, ooh, in retrospect, now knowing that he has a girlfriend, it's like, that's very similar situation to her and her Annie and her ex. It's like, ooh, that could have been kind of a repeat of history, but for him it's like, I care about you and I want to help you get through like all that you're going through, so I need to kind of nip this in the bud, especially because Ben presented some stuff of like, I'm letting my own personal feelings kind of affect this. So now it also begs the question of, well, can you be very objective when it comes to being her therapist? Because now you've shown that you kind of crossed that line a little bit. You kind of nipped it in the butt, but maybe it's too late. I mean, maybe Annie doesn't want to go to you anymore. I mean, she fought so hard to get back, but now it's like, is it worth it now? Because it's like, maybe it does more harm than good being there. That's a whole lane that I'm curious to see them kind of dive into. So there's that. Another angle to this is the whole situation with Beth. We have the whole thing with her coming up with an idea of like, okay, so she's going to try and go to Rio, beg for his forgiveness, him try to put them on a salary, and then basically take that salary they earned and get someone to pop Rio. In particular, Ruby had thrown it out there. Well, there's still Max's Navy SEAL cousin, so there's that. But I love that entire scene. Ruby's just like doing her thing with the vehicle thing that she's in, and she's like, yeah, I got to get used to it, and just like literally the entire scene she's like, yeah, like driving around, she's not sitting in one spot. I love it. And even when she was saying that whole thing about Max's cousin, you hear her kind of beeping, backing up and beeping, like, you know, I love that whole thing of like, I love that that's just like some serious stuff is going down, but at the same time it's like there's got to be something silly going in the background. So we see Beth get all, you know, dressed up and a little dolled up and everything, and Dean's kind of like, oh, so do you kind of have to look that good for this meeting and stuff like that? She's like, you trust me, right? He's like, right. But obviously it's like, it's kind of a little hard because it's still the thing of, because it makes him worry because it's like, yeah, he might be the dick that he is now, but it's still the thing of like, you and Rio had a thing. You like bumped uglies, not just once, twice, at least twice that we're aware of. So he's a little worried about that. He's even sadder later on when the conversation comes around, because he talks about the fact is, yeah, that was like our, you know, what was it, like Valentine's Day party or something like that. Oh yeah, we were late with the nanny. It wasn't even our anniversary or something. He's like, yeah, but you wore jeans. And she's like, what? Like basically that dress she wore is something she never wore for him. And she was like, it's just a dress, Dean, but it means so much because it's like to impress him, try to get him on his good side. You wore that dress, something you don't even do for him. So it kind of makes him, I think it's like a little, like he thought their relationship was taking a good turn. I mean, it's kind of been back and forth. Like Rio isn't just like a danger in their life. He also presents this like almost like romantic challenge for Dean, and it probably makes him feel not just emasculated, not necessarily that, but just like, oh, like, you know, that you're willing to kind of put more for with him than maybe me. So it's a whole complicated. They have her and Dean, like Beth and Dean have a very fucked up and complicated relationship, you know? So that's definitely an interesting avenue. But she meets up with Rio, and it's like, hey, what can I do? I'll do anything. He's like, really? Anything? She's like, within reason, because I'm about to say, not about to go down that sex route again. And he's like, all right, here's his address, meet here. And they're sitting out there. And I love the whole thing about like, okay, like, you know, it's like, yeah, we've had to move this, we had to do that for him. And, you know, and he's like, and you slept with him. And Beth is like, what does that have to do with anything? So it's like, you know, Ruby's the only one that's flipping out because she's like, you know what this could mean, right? Like what he would have us transporting. And he's like, because you know, what's the one thing we're against? And like Annie throws out, so I forgot what it was she pointed out, but Ruby was like, besides that. And then Annie says something else. And Beth's like, she's just studying. She's just trying to show what she knows because the whole GED thing she's trying to get. And so the fact of the matter is, Ruby kept going like, okay, well, you know, what did we stand, like, you know, what was it? What did we march for in that time? It's like, and he's like, oh, you mean that thing with the, like, the vagina hats and stuff like that? And it's like, oh, what's that one thing we were against? Oh, and Ruby and Beth at the same time say guns. And then you have Annie being like, oh, cloning. Oh, right. And Ruby's like, I'm done. It's like, I love that so much. But lo and behold, they're having this whole conversation about what it's going to be. While Mick, I don't know why I can't say it. Meanwhile, Boomer, exactly what I was talking about, like this whole moment thing happening, and then crazy shit's happening in the background. We see Boomer escaping, and it's like, oh, so that's how we're tying this back to the Boomer situation. Like, okay, I see how it is. I'm loving this. So basically, and you're all sitting there like, because the moment they hear him, he's like, Annie Banani, and everyone just kind of froze, and it kind of turned to look a little bit, and you're just still all just sitting still because it's just disgusting, like, this is happening. So they end up having to, because obviously I love them being like, this can't be happening. It could literally be anything. I would prefer a weapon, it's like grenades, missiles, anything but this. And Ruby's like, and all that shit on his face. And Annie being like, yeah, I know. It's like, it's this or that. Like, pick something, because basically saying that some of his tattoos kind of like are contradictions. Like, they kind of go against each other. So it's kind of like pick a side of like when, you know, either neo-Nazi or something else like that. It's like, it kind of doesn't go together. I think she was suggesting like some of his tattoos are like voodoo related or something like that. So, but luckily they were able to get through the stop, like, you know, the cops and stuff like that. I think it could be, the fact is Beth did give out her name, like, oh, my name is Beth, my son's name's Kenny, like, his team is going to be playing your team. It's like, that might circle back into something. Maybe not, maybe it's just kind of a one, but the fact is that she gave out that information makes me think that's going to circle back around. We'll see. But under their impression, it's kind of like, they think, because like, you know, because eventually it comes out, it's like, yo, where do you think you're going? It's like, no, you're supposed to be dropping it off to Canada. And it's like, that's what he told you? It's like, yeah. What did he tell you? And they're like, no, he told us the same thing. So because obviously their impression is like, because the whole thing, it's like, obviously he wants us to, because Boomer was always an issue. So now he's trying to show us like, oh, we got to bring him Boomer so Boomer can take care, like, so that Rio can take care of Boomer himself. Because that was supposed to be the thing way back in season 1. You should have popped Boomer and you had your chance. So they think this is that kind of coming full circle. But they're not letting Boomer know that. So he's like, oh, yeah, we're here so you can use the restroom. He's like, I wish you let me know that like 5 minutes ago because it's a mess in here. But he's like, I got wood, so I'm going to go in there. I love when he does come back out, though. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, sorry, it took a while. I was in solitary confinement. And he's like, what did you do? He's like, well, it's more so what was done to me. And he was basically talking about his asshole. It took a while for it to heal and everything. And it's like, Jesus, all right, stop talking. And then he wants to go, oh, I want to see my Nana. And Ruby's like, really? With that face? She'll have a heart attack. You'll kill her. And I love because the way Ruby does it too. Like she's like real, like her voice gets higher pitched. I love it. But he's like, nah, she had a fall. And he's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, like a little while back she fell and now she's in a home and everything. And obviously out of anyone that's going to hit Annie the most because her and Marion had a good relationship. Like she came to care about Marion. So obviously like, they're like Beth and Ruby were just kind of like, no, we're not doing this. But Annie's like, come on, this could literally be his last chance to say goodbye to her because it's like, we know where we're taking him, that Rio's going to pop him. So give him this chance. They take him to the home and even Ruby being like, oh, this is a stupid idea. But he goes over and it turns out Marion died. I was like, that's so heartbreaking. I was like, that sucks, dude. I was like, she passed away a week ago. I was like, oh my God. So obviously he was in prison, but also for Annie, you know, that hits her hard because like she wasn't in contact with Marion. She kind of lost contact with Marion despite everything. We'll kind of get to that soon enough. Well, at this moment, I even love Ruby Rowland. It's like literally they had the access ramp all the way over there for someone that's handicapped. And it's like, it's just like, what happened? What's wrong? Where's Nana? And it's just like, and then you have Boomer breaking down, which is like, you actually kind of feel a little bad for him, despite him being an asshole. You still kind of feel bad for him because especially, but more so than anything, you feel bad for Annie. And I love that Beth and Ruby were trying to make her feel better. It's like, to be fair, she lied to you for months, Annie, about Boomer. And also, and Ruby's like, also, she was a little racist. And then, like, Beth is like, she was mostly racist. And it's like, but for Annie, it's still, that was someone she cared about because it's like, she slipped on the ice. And they're like, yeah, that could have happened anywhere. It's like, yeah, but she was on her way to the salon. I used to take her to the salon. Because obviously Annie kind of kept the distance from her because it's like, I can't be friends with you because you did the right thing in the end, but you still betrayed me and you lied to me. Like, we had such a good relationship. I did so much for you. Stuff that Boomer took advantage of. You would take your money, do whatever he wants with it. But I looked after you when Boomer wouldn't. I cared for you like you were my family, you were my friend and everything. And I think that's what hurt her the most. But now realizing like, oh, like Miriam's gone. Like, I think it really, you know, it really hits her because now, especially because she blames herself because it's like, because I wasn't there to take care of her. She went to the salon on her own and slipped and got hurt. And that's why she died, you know. And Boomer comes in with her ashes and it's like, oh, can you hold Nana? She always liked you. And Ruby kind of rolls her eyes like, bitch, please. I love it. And so it's like, oh, we need to kind of, her will, it's like she wants to go to this specific waterfall, have her ashes dumped down. And he's like, oh, that's sweet. Ruby's like, that's 3 hours away. And he's like, that's where she married Grandpa, what was it, John or something like that? And Ruby's looking like, why the fuck would I know that? Which also shows you like how much she meant to Annie because Annie remembers all those stories that she regaled her about. Because like obviously her family was always like something that she talked about a lot. So like for Annie to know something like that's super sweet. And it's like, you know, but then, like, Boomer kind of slowly figures it out, like, oh, you're not taking me to Canada. You're taking me to get killed. And he's like, I'm going to go from here. Annie, I like the new thing you've done with your hair. And she's like, it's not really new. He's like, well, the fact is that you let your roots grow out. Beth grabs Miriam and kind of is going to take her to the dumpster and kind of dump her out. And I love Boomer grabbing on the door. He's like, turn the child lock off. And like, it's not just Boomer, it's even Annie being like, don't do it. And I love Ruby being like, if there wasn't enough reason for us to be going to hell, the fact is Beth's over there threatening to dump out an old lady's ashes into a dumpster, and you won't even be able to tell what's her and get enough of her back in it. So Boomer's like, okay, fine. And then he talks to Annie, he's like, I'm not going to Canada, am I? It's like, get him in the back and puts him back in the bag and everything. It's like, wow. And that shows you how hardcore Beth is, the fact that she was willing to do that, you know. But when the time comes, like, Annie's holding, it's like, which one of you has Nana? And Annie's like, it's me. And he's like, which one of you? It's me, Boomer. He's like, okay, promise me you'll do this for me. And Annie doesn't say, he's like, just promise me you'll do that. Like, you know, it's what Nana will want it. And, you know, just make sure that's done. Rio and the crew show up. And as they're dragging him away, Beth tries to save him. Despite everything, tries to save Boomer because she doesn't want this to go down that way. It's like, you don't have to do this. Like, the fact is, an employer, like, thing is, management is giving your employees a second chance. He's like, yeah, I'm already giving you. And she's like, no, not for me, for Boomer. And it's like, he's like, now I got some special plan for him. Which for me, I'm like, that doesn't mean you're going to kill him. You got something else in plan. Like, what exactly? That's the big question. So that's interesting. And even despite these circumstances, Boomer's still in the bag, being like, "Ow, treat me with a little respect," because like one dude ends up dropping the bag and the other dude's just dragging it. I'm like, that's gonna be interesting. Like, what role? Like, so I don't think Boomer's dead. Like, he must be still a part of their operation. Like, Rio must still need him for something, not just being dead. I mean, not unless him being dead is a piece of something. It's got to be something more than that. We'll see, but I'm curious to see where that goes. But now the ladies are back on the payroll, and we see them kind of well, at first we had that moment with Annie kind of dumping off Miriam's ashes, and obviously she's, you know, tearing up, and she tries to dump them, but the wind's blowing. It's like, oh, that's terrible timing. And then it kind of flies back in her face, but she kind of laughs because she's just like the craziness of it all, you know. And I think it was just kind of like one of those things of like you're sad, and it's just kind of just a funny moment, just kind of dry out the tears by laughing a little bit, but also just kind of like maybe it's just like, oh, like it's just ironic that after everything it would kind of go down like that. It's a sad, beautiful, and kind of funny moment, kind of all rolled in one. I think that's what kind of hits the way it does. But we do see at the end, they're back to business, making the money and everything. Everyone's kind of happy. So granted, how long that's going to last, each with their respective situations. Annie with the whole Josh situation, and her new, teacher, study partner. Ruby with the whole Stan thing, Beth with, this whole Dean thing, and obviously also what else that Rio, because once again, we're still on a small scale of seeing what it is that Rio does. We haven't seen the full scope of his full operation. We got peeks into it, but not fully what they're up to and what they're into, besides this whole money laundering thing. Obviously, there was that whole pill thing, so it's like, there's still so much to that operation that obviously the ladies stay in one corner of it. We don't know the full scope of it. But also, like I said, this whole Boomer situation. But the ending was kind of interesting because I'm assuming that's the FBI. Someone else is picking up the trail because someone's looking at the money. And it's like, yeah, like it's been popping up more and more. And this other agent comes over and recognizes like, oh, like the materials it's made from is nail polish, meaning that the person's behind this might be a woman. I mean, at least throwing that out there. So it's like, okay, so now they've got the FBI's attention. Again, maybe that's some other organization. I'm assuming because like counterfeit money falls under white collar crimes, and that's typically handled by the FBI. So I'd assume that, but we'll ultimately have to see where all this ends up ultimately taking us going forward into the next episode. Do note that there is no new episode next week. There will be one the week after next on April 19th. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good